Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. New year, new perspectives. That's right. We got the pocket change market report for good old New Year's Day. I bet you guys didn't think you'd see one of these drop today, but as Lady Luck would have it, here we are. We're going to talk about it. A nice long video for you guys to peruse over of some of the most relevant finds that people have discovered either through searching through change, going through coin rolls from the bank. Maybe you're into going to local coin shops or the shows and cherry picking some really cool errors and varieties. However you do it up, you're either adding something really nice to your collection or you're finding pieces that maybe doesn't have a fit into your collection and you just go and resell it and make money, So as long as you're able to correctly attribute some of these errors and varieties that you see today in this video, then you'll do really well. Now, is it something that you could do to completely replace an income stream? Well, maybe. It really depends on how much time you put into it. I know I've never said this in a previous PCMR, but if you're only going through a little bit of change or you're going to one coin shop a week, that's probably not the best way to make this a business. I know people have asked me, well, how do you do it? Well, I'm constantly online buying new inventory. I'm buying bulk. I'm at, about probably 7 or 8 coin shops a week, all my usual locals. And I'm constantly pounding the pavement for some of these coins. And so can you. It could be as easy as that. But I tell folks it's a really great supplemental way of making a few extra bucks every month. Okay, you'll come away sometimes making, as high as $1,000, $1,500. I mean, that's a real thing. And it all starts from the educational aspect of it. That's why I do these videos. So that way you guys kind of gain a little bit of knowledge of what you're looking for. To kind of change it up this year, I'm going to specify for each one of the listings talked about today, whether or not it was a sold as a traditional auction. Normally I'll accompany however much a coin sells for with the amount of bids it sells for. But aside from that, I'll also specify the coins that were either buy it now listings or just a much higher, bidding floor. We'll just call this part fixed. So there's going to be either the fixed price or there's going to be auction price. So you'll get that. That way you kind of, have an idea of what you should auction and kind of guarantee its value, or something that probably you should throw up as a traditional buy it now, add to cart type listing. You may not sell it right away, and that's fine, because the key to success for selling a lot of these is going to be kind of identifying which one belongs into what bucket, and then just really building a diverse group of product and coins and currency even on your eBay store. All right, so a little food for thought, but let's go ahead and jump in. January 1st, 2022. And thank you guys again for all your support and your viewership on all my content. Let's go ahead and just jam into it, guys. We're going to start off with this one, the 1930S. This is a San Francisco minted Buffalo nickel. They only made a Philadelphia and San Francisco minted Buffalo nickel during this date. No Denvers whatsoever. But this one's pretty cool. You can see on the obverse there what appears to be a delamination or possibly a strike-through. I think when the coin is recirculated to a certain degree, you kind of, can make the argument that it could be either or at this case. Judging from the overall condition, it's in decent shape. There's about nearly a full horn. I would probably give this one like a VF25 type of grade if I had to make that guess. But really, that strike-through lamination anomaly on the obverse is what made this one sell. And a buyer did pick this up for $20.65 fixed. And by the way, all the prices I give you include shipping. It could be like $1, could be a few dollars, $4. A little thing to keep in mind, postage rates will be increasing in 2022. That seems to be the word coming from not only the post office, but all across social media through Facebook, the Discord channels for resales, things like that. So just to let you guys know, when you're selling and that time comes when the postage rates increase, make sure you adjust accordingly, all right? Don't undersell your shipping on traditional auction formats. And then when you offer free shipping on the fixed items, the buy it nows or the higher ceiling coins, you want to make sure that you reflect that price change on there as well into your listing. But other than that, this is a really good find. Buffalo nickels have had annealing issues all across the board from the earlier dates to the final date in 38, along with a lot of Jefferson nickels. So this is kind of like something that has grown in popularity, and people are starting to pay attention to these. The next one that we have here is a rather common variety, all right? So there's two different types of 1979 P. These are Philadelphia Susan B. Anthony's. There's going to be a narrow rim and a wide rim. Now, this one is the much scarcer wide rim variant. This one, as you can tell, and the best place to look at this is going to be by the date. You notice how that edge almost touches both the first 9, and the second 9. This is what's considered the wide date. Compared to the narrow date, you're going to find that that space is a lot larger. All right, so that's going to be kind of the best way to differentiate one and the other. It's always good to have an example of both coins so you know what you're looking at. Condition is pretty decent. Does show some wear. I would say this is probably like an AU58 type grade. This one ended up selling for a best offer of $11.50, and that's a fixed price. Now, at first glance, I thought this was just an off-center struck nickel, but after further examination, this thing has a few pretty wild things going on. The first initial thing that I wanted to share with you, that it is struck off-center by about 70% per the seller listing. Furthermore, this does have a full date, 72D. All right, so that's important as well. People want to collect these based off of the merit of having a full date and mint mark readable on the coin. Aside from that, you notice, especially on the reverse picture, it looks like it's double struck, and even the second strike is even more off-center. Yeah, this one's incredible. So it's not only off-center struck, it's also double struck. The obverse is uniface, and you have a full date. I mean, with all those things considering, this is a phenomenal find. You know, even at the price it sold at, which was $137.50 fixed, I feel like that this coin is probably worth a little bit more than that. This was, you know how I say that, you know, gradable type of coins is probably fitting somewhere in that 2% of that class, whereas the rest of it, the other 98%, aren't grade worthy. This one I feel like is grade worthy. So because of all those things considering, it did sell for a modest amount of money, but I would imagine this in even an annex holder would double the value immediately. The next one that we have here is really cool. Okay, so this one, I mean, it's a star note. It's a 2003 $2 Fed Reserve note. Good old $2 bill. I mean, aside from the star, what really sold this one, and again, it just proves that, you know, depending on how you pitch these things, can determine if you make a little bit more money than just a regular listing. Now, the seller had mentioned that this is what they call the 007 note, or the James Bond note. As you can see, the beginning part of the serial number is 007. So with that kind of likeness thrown in there, the fact that it's a star note, I mean, yeah, it's something that's pretty interesting, even though the serial number in itself is unspectacular. This one is also in pretty nice shape, and ended up selling for the amount of $29.20. This is, by the way, a very commonly printed star note. I believe 3.2 million were produced for this particular run. So, you know, aside from that, I mean, it's pretty neat. It does have just a slight over-inking of the last 8 in the first string of serial number there, but aside from that, that's rather minor. Just good old James Bond 007 is what sold this one for nearly $30. The back of the note really just shows up very nicely. No apparent folds or anything. This looks like it came out of a bank strap at one point. Just a really cool note. And then up next, again, figuring that condition really doesn't matter in the error community, we have this 1947 Lincoln wheat cent with a little bit of a lamination on the obverse. You can see it right there above Lincoln's head. It's actually going through his head, and yeah, it's pretty nice. It's lifted a little bit. It's still attached. You can even see some of that lift there on the word God in the motto, which is kind of cool. Yeah, we're just going to go ahead and skip right past that. By the way, the 47, I accidentally hit the button. The 47 sold for $6.94. I mean, it seems like a low amount of money, but, you know, given the condition and the fact that it's 694 times face is what you're getting back on it. If you look at it that way, it's more of a positive sale. And you got to take the small sales with the big ones. All right. And by the way, this is a coin right here that would qualify for that plain white envelope shipping option. So you could spend under $1 to ship this thing and still profit about $3 at the end of the day. Now, yeah, this is the coin that you saw for, you know, a glimpse. 1987 Lincoln Memorial Cent. This one is broad struck, so you notice that the rim is a little fatter on one side than the other. But a broad struck coin occurs when the collar that normally engages during the strike malfunctions. So it's not up during the strike, which holds the coin, you know, together on the strike and produces, you know, like the edge pattern, whether it's plain or reeded. In this particular case, no collar, okay? The metal flow has to go somewhere, so it goes outwards. It's like smushing Play-Doh with your finger, you know, it's all going outwards. The coin's in pretty decent shape. People do collect these by date, so that's important. This particular coin sold with 2 bids in the amount of $7.70. So, rather minor broad strike. It's a little uncentered, but still a keeper. Speaking of circulated, how about a 1976D Lincoln Memorial with a little bit of a curved clip? Furthermore, you can see a little bit of that Blakesley effect, just a flattening of the opposite edge on there. Again, you know, condition sometimes doesn't matter with error coins. If it's something that's rather scarce, you know, this one's not particularly scarce on its own, but there are other coins that can be beat up, clean, road rashed. We've seen it in weeks before where these coins have sold for a pretty measurable amount of money. This one sold for $7.45. At the end of the day, I mean, that's not nothing. They all add up in the grand scheme of doing business on eBay. And, you know, if you're trying to make it successful, it's going to be volume. You got to get volume of coins listed on there. And then, you know, you'll have people that will buy up, you know, a singular coin here. They'll buy a pack of 10 of something here. You'll actually see that later on in this video where someone had bought quite a few of a specific type of coin, which is pretty cool. Now here's a good old-fashioned Jefferson nickel. This one is off-center by, I don't know, probably like 55-60%. It's got some schmutz on the back, so, you know, as far as eye appeal and cleanliness, it's not top shelf. Kind of like liquor, I guess. Oh, man. But anyways, yeah, this one doesn't have a date, and I think most people that do collect these really put that high on the list of wants for off-center struck coins. But this one is in pretty decent shape. If you're looking just for an example, this one certainly fits. And it's sold for $33.50, which seems like a lot of money for a coin that doesn't have a full date or mint mark. Now this one, admittedly, will be a coin that I probably, in my earlier version of me, you know, as a collector, maybe 15, 20 years ago, I would have overlooked stuff like this. But how about a 1983 Lincoln Memorial Cent? Now, you're going to focus right on the date. You guys check that out? Now, some would say, well, yeah, that's a plating blister. Well, I got in close, and no, it is not. That one also has some cracks and other different types of things going on. That is actually a really nice sized die chip right on there. So a piece of the die had fallen off at one point. Again, just through general wear and tear of the dies. subjected to many thousands of strikes. Eventually, there will be cracks in the armor. This particular coin sold for $9, so that's not too bad. There are a few carbon spots of note condition-wise, but aside from that, pretty cool coin here. And don't laugh. I mean, this looks like something that you would find in bulk, right? This is you know, here in the States, world coins, you know, are bulkish. If they're not silver or if they're not of any sort of rarity or date-wise, you know, normally this is something that you would walk into a coin shop and probably find a big old bucket of them, you know, a pound for $5, you know, type of deal. But this is a 1998 out of all dates, a very recent date, and not particularly special on its own right. This is an Australian $2 coin. All right, if you notice on the reverse of the coin where it says $2, this thing has a pretty cool lamination. I would be willing to bet that there aren't too many of these in Australia's coinage system. This particular coin sold for $100.70 US, and that's with 2 bids. So there were a couple people interested in this coin. Kind of neat, very interesting. Although I think this is a coin where the seller was charging like $20 for shipping, so you just have to kind of back that off, you know, and get the real value of the coin. But yeah, pretty crazy. Go ahead and check out your bulk world coin. I have a whole bunch of it, so you know, I probably have something similar to this, but there are certain countries that command a little bit more money for the error coin market than others. I think this is a really fantastic example of that. All right, we have a group of 5 blank planchets. These are all Lincoln Cent copper-coated zinc planchet planchets. They're all Type 2, so these have the proto rim on there, I guess is what they call it. These went through the upsetting mill, so they have that little bit of a like curved rim toward the edge of all of them. They're ready to be struck. Okay, so when they don't have that proto rim on them, then they haven't gone through the upsetting mill process. But these 5, all from the same composition of planchet, which is a Zinkins. Unfortunately, they all weigh 2.5 grams, as you would expect for a copper-coated zinc planchet, but this is just a little bit of a bulk lot that sold for $13.68. Surprisingly, these are things that you could find in brand new bank rolls of pennies. I've found a number of them over the years. As recently as last year, I found one in a 2021 D bankroll. And more surprised because it came from a Denver roll and not Philadelphia. So pretty neat. The blank planchets, especially from the modern era, aren't particularly valuable. But if you had a group of them, you didn't know what to do with them, you could certainly sell them in a lot like this and make a few bucks in the process. Now, the next 2 coins, the pictures aren't fantastic, and I think that's okay. You know, these were imaged through a 2x2 holder, so you notice the white cardboard background on this, but this is a 1887 Indian head cent. It grades somewhere in like VG. You don't have any letters of liberty showing on this coin, but this hides a dirty little secret, a very cool, valuable, dirty little secret. And this is also a doubled die obverse. I actually own 3 of these in my collection, and they all probably look like this one. This is also referred to as the FS101 in the Cherry Picker's Guide, but you could see the doubling. And notice that it's only on one side, all right? When you have the kind of like weird shelfy doubling on both sides of the devices, especially the letters, that usually indicates Longacre doubling, but this is a legitimate hub doubled coin right here. This one ended up selling with 8 bids combined for $19.89. It's not quite the 1873 closed 3 DDO in terms of price or valuableness, but this is one that you could easily cherry pick, and I've cherry picked these throughout the years with great success. And then here's another one here from the same seller. Again, I don't recommend taking pictures of coins in their 2x2 or any sort of plastic flip. It's just gonna be a bear trying to get the focusing and the white balance down. But if you could tell, this is actually a 1925S Lincoln wheat cent. Not a high-grade specimen. It looks like it probably was cleaned at one point. Aside from that, this is a coin that you could easily find at a coin shop for about $2 to $3 in this condition. But this one also is the RPM as well. This is an S over S RPM. You can see that secondary S is south of the primary mint mark on this particular date. And this is also referred to as the FS 501 in the Cherry Picker's Guide. All right, so this is a very well recognized variety that ended up selling, surprisingly, in this condition for $32.39, and that's with 6 bids. So you had a few people that were genuinely interested in this coin. This is a quite valuable and very desired RPM. So we do have a sealed 1971 mint set. So this will have both the P and D coins in there. Now, this is something that I've known for a little while. These sets, especially the post-silver age of mint sets, you'll find quite a few of these still sealed. All right, it's when you get into the 90% era, like 64 and beforehand, where a lot of these are open. As a matter of fact, probably 99% of these mint sets were open at one point. But this is a good one here. Surprisingly, this is a set of coins in an open envelope that normally sells for about $8 to $10. This one, because it's sealed, and by the way, it's not easy to reseal these, especially after trying to open them, because that glue is really, really tough on here. I have a few myself that I've held on to for a number of years. This one also, as you can tell, has really flat flaps on there, whereas resealed examples of these type of mint sets will have a lot of waviness. There's a lot of inconsistencies with the glue used, along with everything else. It's pretty easy to spot. So if we recognize that an open mint set sells for about $8 to $10, this sealed one sold for double that. $20.78 is what this one sold for on the open market. Now here's another Buffalo nickel, this time a much scarcer key date, 1924D. Now it's only really a scarce key date with a ton of value, if and only if it's in like AU condition and up. Because there are like high-end collectors that want those particular grades. But this one right here is not a beauty queen. It's probably like a good 6 with a full date, and you do have a mint mark. No really discernible horn detail. But it does have that lamination on the obverse, which is, again, par for the course for this series. This one ended up selling in this condition for $20.53. Not bad for a coin that you could easily pick up at a coin shop for around $1 to $2. This is just really neat, 1969D. It's circulated a little bit. It's oxidized brown, but yeah, I mean, you could tell it's struck off center. I would say 50-55%. Not particularly a rare date because I've seen quite a few 69Ds sold in the last few months. This is just worth a mention because it's eye appeal wise a very attractive looking coin that sold for $44.79 with 2 bids on this one. And this one's also cool, all right? I've always said bicentennial coins with errors are, very much sought after by error enthusiasts. But this one right here, really cool. It's a Denver, all right? So you guys there west of the Mississippi aren't feeling left out. This one has been struck through copious amounts of grease from those dies. You can see it on both the obverse and the reverse of the coin. So much so that half of that date is missing. The actual date of the coin is obscured by whatever grease was on the die during the strike. But you just see the general weakness, especially on the obverse, that goes around the clock. And then the 1776 dates seem to have been spared in all of this, which is pretty awesome, actually. I'm not gonna lie, I think that's a very coincidental part of the coin that wasn't really affected all that much. But you could also see the weakness on the reverse as well. So if you're lucky enough to find one of these roll hunting half dollars, which I know is still a thing even into 2022, this one sold for $52, which is a really spectacular amount of money. It seems like a very overachieving amount, but it is an error on Bicentennial, and it doesn't matter if it's a quarter, half dollar, or dollar coin. They're all going to be very valuable. Well, we can't go a PCMR without at least talking about our favorite Wounded Eagle sack dollar. Okay, these are all on 2000p Sacagawea gold dollars, first year of this design type. And this is also referred to as the FS901. In the Cherry Picker's Guide, you can see the pair of die gouges that go through the breast area. It never gets old every time I say it. But yeah, this is referred to as the Speared Eagle or the Wounded Eagle. Very desired, quite common. We've seen just scores of these being sold in 2021. And yet, here we are kicking off 22 with one of these bad boys. This one, man, actually sold for $166, and that's with 4 bids. So this one was organically bid up to a level that is probably more commensurate with the actual variety. I know these have sold for under $100, albeit some of those examples weren't too good looking condition-wise, but this one's really nice. Well, if you're looking for Wounded Eagles, you also probably want to keep an eye out on these weird dead presidents. Now, presidential dollar coins are rife in circulation, if and only if you're looking for them. Because if you go to a bank and you ask for a roll of dollar coins, more than likely 75% of the coins in that roll will be these things. All right, so why pay attention to these? Well, it's worth again looking at. Because you see Ronald Reagan, you have John Quincy Adams, good old George Washington, the first coin released in 07, Grover Cleveland, and William Henry Harrison. 5 completely different presidents, all right, and there's a reverse of them. They're all circulated. I mean, grade-wise, they're not spectacular, but when you look at the edge, a lot of them do exhibit either missing edge lettering like the middle 3 here, and then you have weak edge lettering on the top example and the bottom. But, the seller, as opposed to selling each one of the coins individually, especially coins in this condition, opted to sell it as a group. And that was a wise decision because this group ended up selling in total for $29, and that's with 3 active bids going up to that price. Here's a coin that people actually look for. It's a 1970S for a number of reasons. Either trying to look for a small date, looking for the double die obverse, Repunched mint mark. But how about the floating roof? Which this one looks like it clearly has. I mean, when we get in close with the seller provided images, you can see that this left side, obviously a braided die. It's been over polished. This one as well, although you do see a little tick of a vertical line there, and then sometimes when you have that, it's not really legitimately a floating roof if it has a partial line, but I think I'm willing to give this one a solid pass there. This one sold for $8.70. That's with 6 bids. Keep in mind, grade is everything. People want just like high-end grades of this, and they are very, very findable in BU rolls and things like that. So make sure that you're looking for these. You'll even find, even in 69, the Denver minted coin, floating roofs are pretty common, along with the over-braided or filled initials on the reverse, where it's completely missing. And from the same seller, we have this modern era, looks like 1990s Lincoln Memorial Cent with a little bit of a strike through right on the date. You even have a little strike through on the reverse as well, in US of A, and a little bit on the bottom of the N in cent. So there was a little bit of grease on the dies when this thing was struck, but even still, $8.70. Still not too bad for this sale. It's better than a poke in the eye, that's for sure. Here's another group of rough circulated 1974 Candy half dollars. Now, you guys know the big variety here. It's the FS101 DDO. So this seller had sold a lot of 5 of them. Again, when they're circulated and low-grade condition, probably not worth selling individually. Or maybe they are. You could probably throw these up at $10, buy it now on each coin, and ship it out in a plain white envelope. But, you know, this is a really strong one. Even when they're well circulated, you can see just a doubled notching right here on the bottom of the R and the T and the top of the U. You can see the notching there as well. The E right here. Very strong. This is one of my favorites. And they are quite common, honestly. And you can find them in mid sets. This one sold for $39.10, and that's with 5 bids. Not too shabby. Here's a Scarce date off-center struck Lincoln Memorial cent. It's in good shape. Yeah, there's a few scratches on the actual planchet, but that's normal for these. It's off-center by about, I don't know, 65%, and it sold for $44.79 with 2 bids. And this is a neat one. I found one of these in bulk silver, and so can you. If I found one, you could find one. And I don't actively look through bulk, you know, junk silver, especially Morgans and Peace dollars. I like them with a little bit of meat on the bones, if you know what I mean, as far as like eye appeal and luster and things like that. But this is a 1900 O over CC mint mark Morgan dollar. This is one of the hot popular VAMs. You can see the two kind of horns sticking out of the O right here. Okay, that's the right side of the CC mint mark. So that's one of the C's poking through there. And these are quite strong if you find them, especially in mint state condition. They're just they jab you in the eye. They're that strong. But these are quite valuable and highly desired among enthusiasts of VAM hunters. And these have sold quite good, over $75 a pop, regardless of grade. This one, no different, sold for $95.88 with 16 bids. All right, 1989 Lincoln Memorial cent. Now, I think we had the 87 earlier in the show, but here's another one that is slightly off-center or broad-struck. Could be both because it's quite minor, but yeah, let's just say broad-struck Lincoln here. And this one ended up selling for $9.99. And here's the guy that sold a number of listings, and they're all pretty similar, all kind of like lamination peels and things like that. You know, the seller that has these little orange paper arrows that's pointing to the anomaly on the coin. You know, it works and it's identifiable specifically for that seller. But this is a 1930 Lincoln wheat cent. Not the greatest condition coin, but it does have a lamination thing going on the obverse of the coin. And yeah, each one of the coins he sold, there was probably a good like solid 8 to 10 listings, all sold for $10 a piece. This one sold for $10.99. So again, that's one of those cases where if you have volume of these coins up and being available for sale, you can sell a number of them to the same collector. And at the end of the day, that feels pretty good to line your pockets with 4, you know, $20 bills. I mean, who could go wrong with a few Andrew Jacksons in your pocket? But yeah, pretty cool. Again, it's minor, but it's okay because it's $10. So pull it out, you silly rabbit, and sell it. This one's cool. I just for the fact that this one's on the list and for the amount of money it's sold for, it definitely deserves some attention. Now, it's a 1956, one of the most common dates of Lincoln wheat cents, but this is the BIE die chip. That's right there saddling the B and E in Liberty. That's why they call it a BIE, because the die chip can and will look like a letter I. These are popularly collected. A lot of dates you know, have many different versions of this particular anomaly, but 56 is a little bit tougher date. You normally find these in Denver and San Francisco minted 1950s Lincolns, but this is just a Philadelphia. And sold for $31 with 19 bids. You gotta admire that for a good old BIE die chip. Now I'm gonna have to polish off a few of my 56s and throw them on there, and hopefully I could get $20-$30 for each of those. Not bad. This is pretty neat, albeit very minor. It's a 1973 S Jefferson nickel proof. So this proof coin is slightly rotated on the reverse, as you can see. Rotated roughly 10 degrees counterclockwise. Some will even go and say, well, it's 350 degrees rotated clockwise. I'm like, well, that's not how the error attributors do it. They'll either do it clockwise or counterclockwise. But still, the moral of the story, errors on proof coins, it doesn't matter how minor it is, are still worth a few bucks. This one right here ended up selling for $28.99 with 15 bids. Now I'm going to have to go through all my proof sets and see if I can find stuff like this, because I think this is the bomb when you're able to come across, a minor rotated die error and make 30 bucks off of it. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's a win all day long in my book. So make sure you guys are looking through all your proof sets for this stuff. Now, probably one of the most dramatic errors you'll see on today's PCMR is going to be this 1985P Washington quarter. It is a huge, massive broad strike. I mean, what else is there to say? The thing is massive. So much so that the seller actually stacked it above a $50. That's a $50 sitting underneath that quarter. And see how big it got? It got pretty close to the size of the $50. So again, the caller wasn't present during the strike, and this thing really mashed down hard. This one ended up selling for $152.75 as a fixed listing. So someone hit the buy now button on this one and got a really spectacular looking error too. Our subject coin of the week is one of the top 5, if not 10, Jefferson nickel varieties. And if you're not looking for this particular one, shame on you. This is the 1943P, one of the most plentiful, highest minted silver wartime nickels. Now, these are popular to collect because they are silver. They're worth about $1.50 or so a piece. But more importantly, there's a lot of varieties to look for in the silver wartime nickels. Aside from the myriad of different RPMs that you can look for, this particular date and mint mark has the doubled eye. I mean, take a look at that. You have two eyes. There's a second eyelid right there, and then also the bottom part of the eye. This one is in all the publications from the Red Book, Cherry Picker's Guide. This is a huge one. And, furthermore, the other big one for this date is the 43/2 overdate, which is also just as popular. This particular coin, by the way, is in decent shape, although it's not mint state. I wouldn't even say it's AU. It's probably more like an XF40. It's decent, but it's not a high-graded specimen. This one ended up selling for $67 with 4 bids. Keep in mind, this is a coin even in any condition. They all seem to have a floor of about 45 to 50 bucks. I don't see these coming up onto the marketplace, even if they're, even more circulated, for anything less than that. This is a very strong variety and one of the big powerhouses in modern U.S. coin type. So definitely look for these. Look for the 43/2, all the mint mark RPMs that exist through every single date of silver wartime nickel. Very nice. Another nickel to look for, this is also another favorite of mine. I found a few of these, and admittedly, I think I've sold all of them, probably like 5-6 years ago. And they were all in about this condition. This is a 1935 Buffalo nickel. This one is the doubled die reverse, also known as the FS801 in the Cherry Picker's Guide. 5 cents at the bottom of the coin is doubled. And this one still has enough design detail that you could see the actual splits and notches all across 5 cents, although the coin does appear to look like it's been cleaned at one point. More so evident on the reverse with these hairline scratches than anything else, but a very strong doubled die. And again, this is one that's quite desirable in any grade. This one sold for $40.50 with a fixed floor regular auction. It did catch one bid before it ended. 63D. This one is a BU grade-ish type of Lincoln Memorial cent. This one has a lamination issues again on the obverse there. You can see a little bit of lift in that particular lamination peel. It's still retained, and that's important. You want those things to still be attached to the coin. that matters most to collectors of this type, and they are beginning to kind of take off a little bit. People are collecting these by date. This one sold for $9.65. That's with 12 bids. So make sure when you're looking through your Lincoln cents that you put these aside, and especially the mid-state examples, they are going to be more coveted above the rest. Yeah, the pictures aren't great, and I think the seller did, a relatively lousy job with trying to crop this out, but it's a 2004 $20 bill, and it's got a low serial number. It's pretty well circulated. As you can see, it's got that middle fold along with a bunch of other wear on there. But still, the fancy serial number stuff is very popular right now, especially certain types like low serial numbers, solids, repeaters, radars, high serial numbers, among a few others, ladder notes as well. This one sold, believe it or not, for $92, and that's with 8 bids, on just a good old circulated, colorized $20 bill. So, moral of the story, they're all worth money if you can find a really nice, fancy serial number note. Here's another note as well. This is a 1985 $1 bill. I mean, it's a nice shape. On the front of the note, it looks like a standard $1 bill. It's got both the first and third print. It's all pretty well centered amongst itself. But really, what's the big error in this? Well, the fact that the second back print never got printed on the sheet. So there you go. I've seen these pop up on occasion, and they're quite scarce, and I would imagine that this probably came out of a BEP strap at one point, and that's really the only realistic way that you'll find these is in there. Really cool, and surprised it's not in a graded holder, although I don't think that'll last very long. This sold for $376 as a raw example. Pretty cool, very stunning. Well, we are going to end it off on, again, another set, a 1971 proof set. This is a huge, giant year, even though there's no more silver to be found, right? So people have kind of written off this particular date of proof set because of that fact. This one has, all the relevant coins, from penny to half dollar. But there's also a number of really neat varieties to look for. The missing S mint mark Jefferson nickel is one of the big ones for this date. But when you look at the 71S Lincoln, of course, this is going to be the coin that you're going to look for. This one is the double the die obverse FS101. It's got some pretty crazy doubling, even though the actual close-up pictures aren't the best on this. You could totally tell. And, the seller does have a return policy as long as the coins are intact in that government packaging. Pretty neat. I mean, what do? Sell this as a set or take the coin out and grade it? You can do either, because this is a very, very coveted, I mean, it sold for $268.99. I probably would have been a buyer at that amount of money, because it's one of the most important double dives of the modern proof era. This is the one staring at you in the face. And, again, there's a lot of mint and proof sets out there with actual established varieties from the Cherry Picker's Guide that are going to be even more popular as time goes on, because once they dry up, there's not going to be a whole lot left out there. But, ladies and gentlemen, hey, what do you know? New Year's episode finally coming to a close, but this is where the door opens for you guys. Go out there, make it happen. Look through a bunch of change. It's a new year. We got new coins coming out in 30 days, starting with the 2022 Lincoln cents. Make sure you are right at the banker's door when the first week of February rolls around, and make sure you're getting your fill, because these boxes are going to be hot. They're going to be pricey as a box of sealed coin. And they're also going to be pricey for going through for some more errors, because obviously the quality control factor is not going to sort itself out anytime soon. But that's it, guys. As always, Sean, Blue Ridge Silverhound. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and all the other junk. I got to say it every video, right? But yeah, would love to have your extra support. Keep in mind, we're a Patreon free type of channel. You know, I don't ask for any sort of endorsements or anything like that. We are unsponsored, unsolicited. We are just straight up gas in numismatics. That's going to go ahead and do it, guys. Appreciate your guys' time. Have a great weekend. Hopefully you're inspired by this video. Go get them, Tiger. See ya.